PB and GB is a show by Jonestar, and I have watched since the release of episode 1. While the main characters, Paintbrush and Gummy are amazing in my opinion, one character in particular also stood out to me, that being Nerdbook. The 3 characters previously mentioned are all amongst my favorite object show characters. Nerdbook initially was hated in earlier episodes, but as his true self was revealed, the tides completely turned. Funnily enough, I liked Nerdbook since episode 1 came out, not so much the misogynistic jokes, but just a goofy character that steals things and is just stupid and goofy, but this was what I thought prior to episode 17, now he is genuinely one of my favorite ever characters. PB and GB buy a game, only for Nerdbook to first appear and steal a game. This leaves a very rocky first impression, even worse when Nerdbook says misogynist stuff to PB and GB. Now the typical viewer would analyze that Nerdbook is a thief and a misogynist. After a few failed attempts at getting the game, Nerdbook is at his home with the game, and PB and GB tells his mom that he stole the game. The funny thing is, Nerdbook's mom's appearance hasn't been revealed. All we know is that she makes trombone noises. Nerdbook then has to give the game back, and along with that his PC. This is extremely important to Nerdbook, as that's like his favorite thing in the world, gone and taken away from him, so this is a very bad ending on his behalf, as opposed to just the game being returned. Nerdbook makes a brief appearance, in which he feels he got his PC unfairly taken away, so because of that, he arrives at PB and GB's stand, where they are selling comics. Paintbrush wants to exploit Nerdbook out of his money, but this ends up epically failing, as he steals PB and GB's comics. Honestly, I find it impressive how he can carry all of those comics to his home in just one trip, though really that's just cartoon logic. This moment still has to be some of my favorite Nerdbook moments. I am only talking about episode 10 because it's funny, and it technically in a way, is significant. Nerdbook appears in Gummy and Barry's dream. This is significant because he has really shown to be in the minds of the 2 girls, and at this point he has a very bad reputation, so he is treated as an antagonist to the 2. Gummy and Barry's dream features Nerdbook as a pirate captain on his ship, but GB uses Paintsuka to destroy the ship, just a brief appearance, but Nerdbook being in it does have significance. This episode is huge, not only for Nerdbook, but also PB and GB. If you look closely at Nerdbook's laptop, you'll see stickers that reveal he is a trans man, and bisexual, so Nerdbook is in the LGBTQ+ community. Nerdbook wants his PC back. It's his absolute favorite thing in the world and it got taken away from him. He is tired of what he calls an injustice, so he tries to take the PC back for the entirety of the episode. I'll be brutally honest, despite Nerdbook still saying a bit of misogynistic stuff, I think he is in the wrong, but PB and GB are also in the wrong, due to how they dealt with the situation. Nerdbook at the beginning openly says that his PC is his soul. This could actually mean a lot if elaborated further, but it wasn't. Nerdbook admits he built the PC alone. The previous 2 statements conclude that his PC means a lot to him, and he built it alone, which would further contribute, but the way that message was sent was not all that good, saying in the end how the PC was unjustifiably stolen, and that he doubts PB and GB could use the PC. PB and GB back their claim that it was justified because Nerdbook stole their game, and that they hate NB. Nerdbook then asks them to name one reason why he is worthy of hate. As someone who has Paintbrush and Gummy and Barry as amongst my favorite object show characters, this is probably my least favorite scene of them. They go on and on about how they don't like Nerdbook. While the reasons are valid and understandable, they still called him numerous names and continued even after Nerdbook said I get it twice, which I can't help but slightly relate to Nerdbook in this scene. And then PB and GB repeatedly say bleh, without acknowledging either time Nerdbook saying I get it. Eventually it gets Nerdbook to leave the scene crying. I've thought for a while that trolling to actively hurt another's feelings is a bad way to deal with any situation regardless of the past. But alas, both didn't handle this situation well, and it makes them seem more human, which is something I really like about all 3 of them. Bartholomew then tells PB and GB about an offer that just involves signing their signature to receive something. One problem, it's obvious that it is Nerdbook, as all he did was wear a disguise mustache, so Paintbrush signs it, but it says get a life loser instead, outsmarting Nerdbook. After he took off his disguise, this scene didn't really change anything really, aside from that we saw a funny disguise. Nerdbook, still having extreme dedication towards getting his PC back, decides to write a song to PB and GB, even drawing furry versions of them. The lyrics though are just him wanting them to give back the PC, and during the harmonica solo, the girls just leave. I thought it was actually a decent harmonica solo. Nerdbook makes one final attempt to get that PC back, this time trying to get PB and GB to lose their friendship over an insulting letter supposedly from Paintbrush, but actually written by Nerdbook himself. It's obvious though that Nerdbook did this, with the B in Paintbrush's name not even being capitalized. PB and GB act like Nerdbook's plan is working, so they talk outside and PB and GB fake insult each other. Nerdbook takes what he thinks is the perfect opportunity to get it back, only for the girls to say they destroyed it. Nerdbook is essentially freaking out on the inside, so then he tries asking PB and GB out, one after another, but PB is aero-ace, and GB is aromantic, and Nerdbook thankfully respected their identities, which makes sense because he is a part of the LGBTQ+ community, as are PB and GB, so seeing him respect identities even after all this shows a very good side to him, unlike a certain someone. Nerdbook then says women are all the same, and cries off, but in the end it reveals the PC wasn't actually destroyed. Episode 13 was a lot to take in, but what did we learn from this? Nerdbook cares a lot about his PC, and really, a lot, because he built it and has loved it, but it got taken away after he stole the game back in episode 1. He is willing to take nearly any approach to the situation to get the PC back, but it never worked out, because he wasn't all that polite to PB and GB. And even when he acted that way, they hated Nerdbook for the misogynistic comments and thievery, so it was never going to work out in the first place. Even after episode 13, I have to say that these next 2 episodes are Nerdbook's most significant episodes. PB and GB fall into a hole, which is revealed they can't escape without the aid of someone else. Nerdbook sees this, and takes this moment to laugh at them, while PB and GB plead for help, but Nerdbook ends up falling into the hole too. Nerdbook then realizes that under the hole, he has no more fanfictions and no more of a new PC he just built, which means between now and episode 13, he built another PC, as he was told the other one got destroyed. This is important, as it shows that Nerdbook either reads or writes fanfictions, and enjoys them, finds them fun, and has lots of passion towards them. Maybe that is one of the reasons to his extreme dedication towards his PC. Anyways, Paintbrush tries to settle differences between her, Gummiamberry and Nerdbook to get out of the hole, and after unsuccessfully asking for help, and Gummiamberry's phone dying, they realize they will be in this hole for a while, so Nerdbook has a granola bar from Paintbrush, liked it, and even said thank you to her. Nerdbook then has a moment, as he got into circumstances that got to the point he said thank you to Paintbrush, and she offered food as well to Nerdbook. Despite what happened, it shows that above all, safety is first. This next bit is huge, as he begins to start reading his eulogies. This frame shows that he just wants friends, to be seen as a man, and to be wanted, something that seems quite surprising considering past circumstances, and he accidentally slips out a piece of paper, which falls into the hands of PB and GB. This paper is his fursona. This is it. Nerdbook's mask has been taken off by force. PB and GB now know he is a trans man, a furry, and he is vulnerable about all this too. He is really stressed because the paper that he needed to safely store so others don't see, has been seen by another person. He expects PB and GB to make fun of him, and his body language is a strong indication that he was made fun of in the past, but to his surprise, PB and GB do not make fun of him at all for that, saying that they are also trans, and even expressing a liking towards his fursona. Looking back at episode 13, those drawings of furry PB and GB have aged remarkably well. Nerdbook has finally found people who are accepting of his identity. This brief moment PB and GB learned a lot about Nerdbook, and Nerdbook learned a lot about PB and GB. It changed Nerdbook's life even. He found people he can truly be himself around, without having to wear the mask he has had for the rest of the series. At this point, the average viewer would also have a completely different perspective on Nerdbook. Paintbrush reveals she has a human sona, and a lot of OCs, with exactly 375. Nerdbook is absolutely flabbergasted by this, having around 10 of them. Off topic from the show, but I love how he is surprised by 375. Wait until he finds out I have 2136. Every time I watch that scene in real life, I jokingly call that child's play. It's just funny. But really, making a world of OCs is awesome. I love doing that and just expanding my imagination whatever it takes. And honestly, Nerdbook and Paintbrush both making art is really cool, as previously it was thought they would never relate, but now they already do, and quite a lot. It is shown the three of them got into this hole from Nerdbook running errands for his mother, and the girls wanting to get their 5DGS fixed, but all that was needed was a true soft reset, which Nerdbook did. Paintbrush is very thankful for this and Nerdbook tries to shrug it all off, which shows he is good with handling technology. I can imagine this being a big thing in the future for interactions involving Nerdbook and the girls. Nerdbook and Paintbrush have yet another thing in common, liking Grammomon, with them even talking about their favorite Grammomon, Nerdbook having a strong card collection and all the games, I find it fascinating how Paintbrush and Nerdbook have a liking towards Art and Grammomon, yet because Nerdbook was masked, they hated each other at first. Nerdbook and Gummy both also have somewhat of a competitive spirit in common. After a game of charades, scene by scene, they realize they are having so much more in common with each other than initially thought. I find this really fascinating, and something I want to keep in mind in real life too. Now PB and GB ask Nerdbook about his previous behavior with the misogynistic comments, and he reveals those were all jokes, but because the tone was not obvious, they were taken seriously, and it is revealed that Nerdbook loves women. He doesn't truly mean what he says, he said them to seem manly enough. He thought that is how you truly become a man, when in reality, that isn't the case. PB and GB tell Nerdbook he just needs to be himself, without using toxicity to fit in. Seeing Nerdbook get accepted and him realizing that he doesn't have to be like this is extremely impactful and honestly kind of heartwarming to see. His character is truly evolving at this point. Nerdbook then cries profusely, and apologizes not only to PB and GB, but also to every woman out there for his comments. He has now realized that those comments are harmful, and he now knows that truly expressing himself is key, not trying to fit in with others. Nerdbook first expresses how he just wants to play his new PC, and then is asked why he liked his PC so much. Nerdbook used it as an escape from the harsh reality he lived in. Basically it was his source of fun and happiness, so seeing that get taken away from him must have genuinely felt really bad. He then goes on how he was not well liked amongst his peers in school, pre- and post-gender transition, getting bullied, mocked, his glasses forcefully taken away, and even a victim of transphobia. During the second scene of him getting bullied, he even passionately asks to see if anyone is down for Grammomon trading, which shows he had no shame. He's really passionate about it and likes it a lot, and after getting insulted, it makes sense to why he does not want to share this stuff. He just wants to protect himself, and he said he hasn't had friends for his life. This changes so much about prior episodes, especially episode 13. I swear the moment I enter the PB and GB universe, I am going to go over to Soap Bar's house with a loaded shotgun. Those characters for real are infuriating, but also very realistic and well written. What Nerdbook really wanted was his joy back. He wanted to be able to escape from reality again. He just wanted to have fun watching anime, reading fanfictions and manga. So looking back, that must have been a really rough time for him, because that feeling of losing something so valuable to you is awful, especially when you made it yourself, like that was really his PC. So his dedication for trying to get it back makes perfect sense now. PB and GB realize this too. Paintbrush reveals she and Gummy also got bullied in school, that they got misgendered and just viewed in a negative way, and even telling Nerdbook about the incident with Penne, a former friend who did not accept PB and GB for who they really were. So Paintbrush saying it still stings makes sense, as they've known each other for a long time, but Gummy taught Paintbrush that she still has her identity regardless, which applies to Nerdbook too. Paintbrush then reveals the PC was not actually destroyed, which Nerdbook thought was true, and ends up being right. Paintbrush offers it back, but in the end Nerdbook rejects it in favor of his new, more efficient PC, and he insists PB and GB should keep the other PC as an apology gift, showing he truly cares for PB and GB, and also feels genuine remorse for his actions from before. He is happy with what he has, and is happy with PB and GB keeping the other PC. Nerdbook then says how he genuinely really enjoyed PB and GB's company, which was more than obvious from the inside. He found people who accept him, support him, and relate to him, something he never had outside of his own mother. PB and GB also enjoy Nerdbook's company. Now they describe him as a loser in a positive connotation, as opposed to a negative one, which is their sign of that they are friends, in reference to their own language back in episode 2, but Nerdbook isn't quite used to it yet. The three finally get rescued by Grapey and Conehead, and Nerdbook's reaction after finding out is dancing. If PB and GB did not see his persona, Nerdbook may not have been expressive to the point of that. He now feels happy to truly be self-expressive in front of PB and GB. Nerdbook then skedaddles back home to get his comics he stole back in episode 4 to give back to PB and GB. He also left a note stating he was sorry, and that PB and GB have no idea how much he appreciates what they told him in the hole, and even wants to hang out again. The possibilities for what future interactions PB, GB, and Nerdbook could all have together is such a cool topic. After this episode, I can confirm this is an iconic trio in the making. Nerdbook is now one of my absolute favorite object show characters due to episode 17 and 18, though I found him funny prior too, but he went from someone masked and stole things, made misogynistic jokes, and overall behaved badly because he thought he would fit in, to an expressive person that just wants friends and fun, being extremely happy to find people he can express himself with. And the glimpse of his past also reveals that he was a victim of school bullying, and that he thought he'd have to do toxic things to fit in with others. I love how one of the most complex characters I've seen is literally named Nerd Book, but at the same time he is such a well-written and incredibly intriguing character, and his redemption was absolutely brilliant. I am excited to see more of him in later episodes.